Here is the title track of our record, the Gordian Knot, probably the centerpiece of the record, and you'll notice right away that we've expanded the instrumentation of the band to include a string section. Additionally, we have some other kind of exotic instruments like accordion, played by Michael Watts, harpsichord, played by me. You'll notice that the saxophone switched to woodwinds for a lot of this piece. And the brass section has straight mutes in, which gives it a lot more of an orchestral color. Now, my goal in writing this piece was to combine two worlds I love very much. World with a jazz language, and then another idiom with more classical language. Now, I'm very fortunate in that the members of this band are well schooled in both of those traditions, and you'll notice that the way they're playing this music, it's not entirely jazz nor entirely classical. They've succeeded in walking that line right between the middle of those two worlds. This piece starts off prominently featuring Jay Mason on the bass clarinet. He does a great job of executing some pretty difficult music. Here's Jay to talk a little bit about this piece.
Thanks, Gordon. One of the things I want you to notice about Gordon's writing on this is how effectively he uses the, as he calls them, exotic instruments. He uses the full range and all sorts of colors of the instruments in lots of combinations to get his musical ideas out there for you to listen to. The other thing I want you to do is go back and listen to the very beginning and listen to the great bass playing by Kevin Axt, our bass player in the band. We have a lot of things together there at the beginning, and he really just sounds great. It's such a pleasure to play with him. So now you'll notice that the rhythm section is swinging, and we're still playing some straight things over top of them with all the horns. Just makes this piece so interesting and very engaging to play.
You've probably noticed now that the piece is emerged as a little more jazzy, as the woodwinds are now on saxophones. And one of the key members of the saxophone section all along has been Jeff Driskill, whose excellence on tenor sax, but also flute and clarinet, have really added to the versatility of our sax section. Here's Jeff to tell you a little bit about his experience with this music.
Thanks, Gordo. Yeah, this music's so much fun to play, and this part in here especially kind of brings that out because there's so much complexity. As an ensemble player, you got to figure out where your part's important and where it's not, when you need to bring it out, when you need to tuck it back a little bit. For me, that's the most fun kind of playing that there is, and one of the really, truly great things about playing in the Phat Band is getting the chance to do that with such great musicians. This section really came out beautiful, I think. And as it calms down here a little bit, it's my cue to duck out of the way and turn it back over to Gordon.
This section of the song is for improvisation, so it's pretty loosely structured with a lot of freedom for the rhythm section and for our soloist Mike Rocha on the trumpet. Here's Mike to tell you a little bit about his experience with the Gordian Knot.
Thanks, Gordon. Hey everyone, this is Mike Rocha, and I gotta say, this solo was an absolute blast to record. You know, it's only a little bit nerve-wracking when you have Gordon Goodwin and Dan Savant sitting in the recording booth listening to you as you're improvising for the very first time over a track and expecting you to come up with something that's going to go on the record. But that's how it goes. But once we got settled in and got rolling, everything just seemed to kind of come together. It gets a lot easier as you've put more and more time and years into the art of improvising. So I want to encourage all my young improvising friends out there to remember, just go for it.
After the solo section, we have a development section where this song compositionally expands a little bit, and I wanted to bring in our bass trombone player, Craig Gosnell, foundation of the band in so many ways. You take the intonation from the lower instruments, and Craig is just so solid. What he does on that horn, he just makes it sound easy. Here's Craig Gosnell.
Thanks, Gordon. One of my favorite aspects of playing in this band is the musical communication that happens amongst the three of us playing the bass frequencies, Jay Mason, Kevin Axt, and I. We are constantly listening to each other for phrasing, pitch, and time so we can provide a foundation for the rest of the band to soar above. Playing together is always a fun, energetic, low-end trifecta of sorts. When it comes to Gordon's writing, it's always cool that Jay and I get to wear interchangeable hats, in that there are plenty of times where we are each providing the low end for our respective sections, saxophones and trombones, but then there are times when we get to change things up. Gordon will write Jay to play along with the trombones, or there are times when I get to be a sixth woodwinder to help provide a foundation when the saxes are doubling on other instruments. And one of the great aspects of this chart for me is how it rides that stylistic line. We certainly have played that way in a number of other pieces, particularly those inspired by the animation composing of Carl Stalling, but I feel that this is kind of a culmination. I really enjoy hearing the use of strings, as we didn't hear that element when the band recorded it, and the piece is elevated all the more by it.
So this chart is building to the climax now, as you can tell. And one of the horses that this band rides to that climax is our lead trumpet player, Wayne Bergeron. I wanted to ask him to talk a little bit about the differences in approach in playing a chart like this. Here's Wayne.
Obviously, with a chart like this, we're not going to approach it the same way we would a swing tune. Myself, as the rest of the brass section, we try to play as orchestrally as possible on something like this. Obviously, there's a lot of swing elements in this chart throughout, which Gordon likes to do. He's always pushing the boundaries of what a big band can do stylistically, and that's one of the things I love about playing in the band. It's not the same old thing, and it stretches your talents many different directions. This little development section here is one of my favorite sections of the chart. I love the way this builds and the way the different things get layered on here. Some stellar playing by the entire band on this, especially Jay Mason, Craig Gosnell on bass trombone. Some just really beautiful low-end playing. Check out how the trumpets and trombones are playing so light and orchestrally, but building some great energy as we reach the climax of this chart.
And as the band grows and grows to the end of the chart, you can hear our lead trumpet player, Wayne Bergeron, screaming those high notes like only he can do. As I listen to this piece, I can't help but be filled with gratitude for the great musicians that brought it to life. There are a lot of talented musicians in the world, but not all of them have the stylistic flexibility, the technical mastery, and the aesthetic and taste to bring this music to life the way these musicians did. It was a complete thrill for me to watch it come together, and I hope you enjoyed the piece as much as we enjoyed performing it.